Greetings to all our listeners. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight on the Hung Ghost Stories channel, we invite you to enjoy a new story by author Lan Lo. Now, please sit back and listen to the tale. In the late afternoon, Kwong was riding his motorbike smoothly along the countryside road leading back to An Lam village. Today seemed to be a lucky day. He had just landed a pretty good job in the town as a technical supervisor for an electronics and refrigeration store. In truth, Kwong used to be a skilled air conditioning technician in the city, having graduated with top honors from a technical college. He had enjoyed a comfortable life with a beautiful wife and a lovely son. He had been working hard, saving up with the intention of renting a larger house closer to the city center by the end of the year. However, one day, feeling unwell, he returned home early, only to be paralyzed by the shocking sight of his wife in bed with another man. When the truth came to light, not only did the woman show no remorse, but she shamelessly insulted Kwong, calling him incompetent and unable to provide the life she desired. Worse still, she revealed that the 5-year-old son he cherished more than his own life wasn't even his biological child. After dropping that bombshell, she took the boy and left with her lover. A few days later, Kwong received a court summons to finalize their divorce. That period of his life was like falling into hell. He plunged into alcohol to drown his sorrow, even contemplating revenge or ending his own life. Fortunately, he remained lucid enough not to cross the line. Over 3 months, he lost 20 kilograms, wasting away to skin and bones. No one could recognize the cheerful, healthy young man he once was. He might have remained trapped in that despair for much longer, had it not been for a dream one late night. In his sleep, he saw his deceased parents. Being an orphan since childhood, he barely remembered their faces. Meeting them in his dream, he broke down in tears, kneeling and begging to go with them. But his mother shook her head, urging him not to harbor such dark thoughts. Life was still long, she said, and there was no need to cling to the past. At the very least, he had learned the truth before it was too late, leaving him plenty of time to start anew. Waking from the dream, Kwong found his pillow soaked with tears. Yet, remembering his parents' words, he felt an awakening. He resolved to give up alcohol and abandon his negative thoughts. He refused to stay in the city any longer. It held too many memories that made it hard to let go. Instead, he thought of an older relative in the countryside, Uncle Luan. Uncle Luan was a bachelor from his father's side of the family, living alone in their ancestral home. After Kwong called to check on him and explain his situation, Uncle Luan sympathized and agreed to let Kwong move in with him. By now, Kwong had been living in An Lam village for over a month, gradually forgetting his past torments. By day, he helped Uncle Luan with farm work. By night, the two caught crabs and fish for modest dinners before bed. 3 days prior, during a trip to the town to buy personal necessities, Kwong stumbled upon a hiring sign at an electronics store. After much thought and encouragement from Uncle Luan, he decided to apply today. With his skills and qualifications, he was hired immediately. While the salary wasn't what it had been in the city, it was considered a very high income for this rural area. Returning to the present, Kwong felt lighthearted. He stopped by the market to buy some wine and a roast duck for a small celebration with his uncle. But when he arrived home, parking his bike and holding the food and wine, he saw Uncle Luan busy setting up an offering table. "Uncle Luan, is today a death anniversary?" "You're back, Kwong. How did it go up there? Did you get the job?" "Yes, I did. With my skills, who would turn me down? I bought some wine and food. Let's have a drink together." "Great. Help me brew a pot of tea so I can carry this tray out to Lady Third's shrine." "Sure. Here is the tea. Put the cups on the table. Wait inside until I finish the incense offering, then we'll eat. I'll go shower and chop the roast duck. With food like this, we're going to get drunk tonight, eh?" Kwong went to the back room to grab his clothes and take a shower. As dusk settled, all the chores were finished. Kwong and Uncle Luan spread a woven mat on the veranda to sit in the cool air. The chicken from the ritual offering had been brought inside and shredded by Uncle Luan. "We won't be able to finish all this," Uncle Luan said. "Let me call Vu over. I haven't had a drink with him in a while." "Let me go call him," Kwong offered. Just as Kwong spoke, he caught sight of a familiar figure passing by. Vu. Hey, Vu. Vu was around Kwang's age and a fellow villager. Since Kwang had moved here, the two had hit it off and become close friends. Hearing his name, Vu stopped his motorbike. Kwang? What's going on? I have good news today. Bought some wine and food. Come sit and have a few cups with my uncle and me. Sounds tempting. But let me go home, drop off my things, and take a shower first. I've been working since early morning. I'm covered in dirt. All right, go ahead. We'll wait for you. Vu eagerly drove toward the end of the village. Seeing Kwang return alone, Uncle Luan asked, "Where's Vu?" He said he's dirty and needs a shower first. I don't know what he's been doing lately, but I haven't seen him all week. You didn't know? He's been working at the brick kiln in the next village for over a week now. A brick kiln? Why would he leave a stable life to go work there? I had no idea. Ask him when he gets here. After a few cups of wine, Vu arrived just as darkness fell. He stepped inside with a bright smile, holding a small bag. What's the occasion for such a feast? Did Kwang win the lottery? No lottery, Kwang laughed. I just got a new job, so I bought a duck to celebrate. The chicken is Uncle Luan's. Ah, from Lady Third's shrine. I see. But I can only have a few cups for company. I can't get drunk tonight. Why not? I have to work at the kiln tomorrow. They start early, 6 in the morning. I was meaning to ask you about that. Why work there? Didn't you say before that the pay is high, but the work is brutal and toxic? That was before. Times change, and I can't just rely on our small plot of farmland forever. I need money. Did you get into gambling or debt? Are you crazy? No gambling or debt. I just need to save up so my wife and I can move to the town next year. Why would you two want to move up there when things are fine here? Vu sighed, raising his wine cup. After draining it, he smacked his lips. I don't want to, but Lu, my wife, and my mother don't get along. We've been married for over a year, but the peaceful days can be counted on one hand. My mom is strict and traditional, while Lu is young, impulsive, and blunt. Being caught in the middle is exhausting. Lu said if we don't move out, she refuses to have children. Good heavens! Kwang exclaimed. Uncle Luan nodded beside them. Ah, that's a tough spot. Women living under one roof always have friction. Look at me, isn't being single great? He laughed heartily. Kwang looked at his friend and asked, how much do you need? I don't know yet. I'll see how much I can save by the end of the year. At first, we'll just rent a place. Houses in the town are expensive. Honestly, I don't really want to move out. I figure we'll rent a place for a few months, and once Lu sees how hard it is, she'll want to come back. My mom nags, but she treats Lu well. She hardly ever makes Lu lift a finger around the house. Well, just do your best. For now, drink up. A while later, Vu received a phone call from his wife. Though he didn't say much, from his responses, Kwang guessed that his mother and wife were arguing again. As expected, Vu hastily downed his wine, excused himself, and left. Once he was gone, Uncle Luan shook his head. Poor guy. I've known Vu since he was a kid. He's as gentle as a block of earth, too soft to be strict with his wife. Not like dung at the head of the village. One word from him and his wife wouldn't dare argue. Suddenly, Uncle Luan stopped, noticing Kwang's somber expression. Guessing his nephew was reminded of his own broken marriage, the old man quickly changed the subject. Come on, drink. How long are you going to stare at that cup? Right? Kwang said, snapping out of it. He took a sip and asked, by the way, Uncle, what was that ritual you performed at the shrine earlier? Ah, today is the 7th day of the 7th lunar month. Every year, we prepare an offering for Lady Third. Who is Lady Third in our family? Why isn't she worshipped on the ancestral altar inside, but in a separate shrine outside? I've asked you several times since I moved here, but you never told me. It's not that I didn't want to tell you. I just get so busy I forget. All right, since we're sitting here, I'll tell you. This story goes back over 100 years. Back then, this area was just barren wasteland. The Vo clan was among the refugees who fled war and settled here, founding an lamb village. Over time, with hard work and heaven's blessing, the village prospered and the land grew fertile. Hearing rumors of the rich land, refugees poured in from everywhere. Soon, the population tripled. Of course, among the newcomers, there were both good and bad people. One late night, my great-grandfather went out hunting for frogs. Passing the flooded fields behind the village, he heard a faint cry for help. Peering into the dark, he saw 3 or 4 men gathered on a nearby mound. Suspicious, he stepped forward and shouted, "Who's there? What are you doing out this late?" Startled, the men scattered and ran into the night, leaving behind a small, shivering figure. It was a young girl, only 16 or 17, her clothes torn to shreds. At first, the girl was terrified, thinking my great-grandfather was one of them. After he calmed her down and draped his coat over her, she explained that her name was Nok from the lower Ba River region. War had scattered her family. Hearing that this area was prosperous, she had traveled here hoping to find work as a servant for a wealthy family. But as she neared the village, a gang of local thugs had ambushed her and dragged her into the wasteland to assault her. Pitying her, my great-grandfather brought Nok home so she could wash up and change clothes. Initially, he only meant to give her shelter for the night. But my great-grandmother was deeply moved. A few years prior, they had lost their second daughter to illness, and Nok was around the same age. She persuaded her husband to adopt Nok as their third child. From then on, everyone affectionately called her Lady Third. Sometime later, my great-grandmother became pregnant again. But war soon returned to Lam village. My great-grandfather had to take their eldest son and hide in the deep forest. At home, Lady Third stayed behind to help with chores and care for her foster mother. Then, one day, a jeep pulled up to the gate, carrying a squad of soldiers. The commanding officer slammed a ledger and 2 sheets of paper onto the table. "Where are your husband and son? There's a conscription order. Tell them to present themselves immediately." Good heavens, they went far away for work. "I don't even know if they are alive or dead," my great-grandmother cried. The soldiers ransacked the house, but found no one. However, the officer noticed Lady Third. When his lewd advances toward her were rejected, he used force, arresting her under the pretext of interrogation. My great-grandmother tried to stop them, but Lady Third, fearing her mother would suffer a miscarriage from the shock, agreed to go. Before leaving, she squeezed my great-grandmother's hand, reassuring her that she would return by nightfall. After she left, my great-grandmother was sick with worry. She gathered all the household money and valuables, trying to bribe contacts to release Lady Third. That evening, as she lay restlessly in bed, there was a knock at the door. "Who is it?" "Mother, open the door." "It's me." Overjoyed, she rushed to open it. Lady Third stood outside. "Good heavens, child. Are you hurt? Did those beasts beat you?" "I'm fine, Mother. They just locked me up and questioned me about father and brother. When it got dark, I started screaming. I guess they found me too annoying, so they let me go." "Thank goodness. Come inside. Let me cook some rice. You must be starving." "I was so worried about you, I didn't want to eat," Lady Third said softly. After dinner, Lady Third went to her room to rest. My great-grandmother stayed up planning how to evacuate them to safety before the soldiers returned. But at dawn, there was another knock at the gate. My great-grandmother opened it to find a familiar villager. "Sister, hurry to the garrison and claim Lady Third's body. Those soldiers killed her. They told me to notify her family." "What? Don't make such terrible jokes. Lady Third is sleeping in her room right now. I'm telling you what they told me. Are you sure she's inside? If you don't believe me, look." My great-grandmother dragged the villager inside. At her daughter's bedroom door, she called out, "Child, are you awake?" There was no reply. Knowing Lady Third was a light sleeper, my great-grandmother panicked. The door was bolted from the inside. She called neighbors to help force it open, only to find an empty room. My great-grandmother was bewildered. She thought Lady Third might have left early, but that made no sense. My great-grandmother's bed was near the main entrance. She would have heard the door open. Furthermore, the bedroom door had been locked from the inside. If someone had left, how could the latch have slid shut behind them? Reluctantly, she followed the villager to the garrison. Inside the morgue, a corpse lay covered by a white sheet. When the soldier pulled the cloth back, my great-grandmother collapsed. It was indeed Lady Third. When she regained consciousness, neighbors had already dressed the body and brought her home. The soldiers claimed she had died of a sudden stroke, but my great-grandmother didn't believe it. She brought the coffin back to the garrison, accompanied by angry villagers. Under pressure, the officer admitted they had tortured her because she refused to reveal the whereabouts of her father and brother. He claimed a heavy blow had accidentally killed her. However, the women who washed Lady Third's body revealed that she had been brutally violated. The atmosphere grew explosive. Late that afternoon, a higher-ranking officer stepped in, promising to discipline the men involved and offering money for funeral expenses. My great-grandmother refused their money, but wanting her poor foster daughter to have a peaceful resting place instead of lying cold in the street, she brought the body home for burial, vowing to return for justice later. She didn't need to. That very night, during the wake, news arrived. Every single soldier who had participated in arresting Lady Third had gone mad. They screamed, hallucinated, and tore at each other. The commanding officer shot his own men one by one before putting the gun to his head. Before pulling the trigger, witnesses said he smiled an eerie, chilling smile. At that exact moment, a strange sound, like faint, echoing laughter, emanated from inside Lady Third's coffin. My great-grandmother knelt before the altar, weeping. "Child, have you avenged yourself? If so, rest in peace and reincarnate into a happy life." Yet, what happened next contradicted her prayers. On the day of the funeral, the sky was dark and stormy. When the young men tried to lift the coffin, they froze, grimacing under its sudden, impossible weight. My great-grandmother thought they were joking, but seeing their faces turning red from strain, she realized Lady Third refused to leave. She clasped her hands and prayed to the coffin. "Child, you were wise in life and sacred in death. Listen to your mother. The living and the dead must part. Go to your resting place so you can reincarnate." Suddenly, a torrential downpour erupted, forcing the burial to be postponed. Since bringing a coffin back into the house was taboo, they set up a temporary tent in the yard. By midnight, the rain stopped. Fearful that it would pour again by morning, they conducted the burial in the dead of night. By 2 a.m., the grave was completed. They thought the tragedy was over, but chilling rumors soon spread. Villagers saw Lady Third's ghost wandering the roads. At the garrison, a terrified sentry confessed that her apparition appeared every night to haunt the guards. As rumors escalated, my great-grandfather and eldest son returned from the forest. Hearing what had happened, my great-grandfather was consumed by grief and rage. He invited a renowned Taoist priest to conduct a ritual to liberate her soul. Upon arriving, the priest frowned. "The Yin energy in this village is far too thick. This means her spirit has transformed into a vengeful ghost, Loqui." To be sure, he ordered the grave exhumed. When the coffin was opened, Lady Third's body showed no signs of decay. Her hair and nails had grown long, and her corpse emitted a faint, sweet fragrance. Even after a lifetime of strange experiences, my great-grandfather was shocked. The priest spent 2 hours casting spells until a deafening thunderclap shook the sky. The priest was hurled backward by an invisible force. Suddenly, the corpse began to decompose rapidly, emitting a dreadful stench. Recovering his breath, the priest whispered, "This is bad. Her resentment is profound. She died an unjust death on a day of bad omen. The burial was done carelessly at midnight, a grave error. She is no ordinary ghost now, but an exceptionally rare, powerful wraith. I cannot suppress her alone. I will seal her temporarily with my blood while I seek help. In the meantime, you must cremate her remains." Following his instructions, they cremated the body, placed the ashes in an urn, and sealed it with a talisman. Yet, Lady Third's ghost continued to appear. The family considered fleeing the village. Fortunately, the priest returned with 3 other masters. Together, after 3 days and nights of rituals, they succeeded in trapping her spirit inside a talisman. As they prepared to burn it, my great-grandfather stopped them. "Masters, won't you help her reincarnate? We cannot. Once a spirit becomes a vengeful ghost, it defies the underworld's laws. If we don't destroy it, it will continue to haunt the living." My great-grandfather, great-grandmother, and eldest son knelt, pleading for mercy. She had suffered too much in life. To destroy her soul would be a crime against heaven. Moved by their loyalty, the priests offered an alternative. They would spare her soul, but the family had to build a small shrine behind the house. Her spirit would be bound there to cultivate and cleanse her demonic energy. The family had to offer daily incense and prayers to keep her pacified. The shrine was built. From then on, Lady Third never haunted anyone again. Instead, she frequently appeared in dreams to warn the family of impending disasters. Through decades of war and peace, our clan remained safe and prosperous. Uncle Juan poured himself another cup of wine. That's the story. Though she shared no blood with the Vo clan, she protected us fiercely. So that's why? Kwong marveled. I didn't grow up here, so I had no idea. Have you ever seen her yourself, Uncle? Actually, once. I was around 20, working in the district. Riding my bicycle home exhausted one night, I dozed off and nearly crashed into a tractor. At the last second, an invisible force grabbed my handlebars and swerved me into the ditch. I was brought home unconscious. For a week, I was in a coma, dreaming that demons were dragging me to the underworld. But every time, a young woman appeared, grabbed my hand, and pulled me back. When I finally woke up, a priest told my family my soul had been abducted by wandering spirits. Without Lady Third's intervention, I would have died. So the girl you saw was Lady Third? I believe so. That was the only time I ever encountered her. Since then, I haven't felt even the slightest hint of her presence. I think, after all these years of cultivation, she has ascended to a higher realm and left the shrine. And that's a good thing. She no longer has to endure the wind and rain of the earthly world. The conversation eventually shifted to other topics. Around midnight, they cleared the table and went to sleep. The next morning, Kwong woke up to his alarm, wincing slightly from a lingering hangover. Remembering it was his first day at the new job, he hurriedly dressed in clean clothes. Uncle Luan chuckled seeing him. One night of drinking, and you look exhausted. I haven't drank like that in a long time, Kwong smiled. I'm heading to work now. I won't be home for lunch. Do you need anything from the town? Buy me a bottle of medicated oil. The shop here is out. Will do. At 5 p.m., Kwong's first workday ended smoothly. He bought the oil and a nice new outfit for Uncle Luan. As he neared home, his phone rang. It was Vu. Kwong, are you free? Let's drink. I'm heading home right now. Come over to my place. I bought some fragrant rice wine and wild boar meat. Let's feast. No more drinking for me. My head is still spinning from last night. Come on, don't be boring. Some other time, man. Kwong hung up, muttering about his friend's sudden obsession with drinking. Arriving home, he was greeted by the rich aroma of galangal braised carp, Uncle Luan's specialty. What's the occasion for braised fish, Uncle? Kwong asked, hanging up his coat. Did you buy my oil? Uncle Luan called from the kitchen. And why did you buy me clothes? I have plenty. I got a bonus from my boss today. Wanted to share the luck. Why cook braised fish so late in the day? I wasn't planning to. But after lunch, Vu came by carrying a huge carp. He said he took his mom to a death anniversary in another village, and relatives gave him the fish. His wife doesn't like carp, and she's away at a party until tomorrow anyway, so he brought it here. Vu. Kwong blinked. He just called me 5 minutes ago asking me to come drink wine and eat wild boar at his place. Well, did you go? No. I told him I was too tired. I'll ask him over another day. All right. Go shower. We can't eat the fish tonight, though. It needs to simmer overnight until the bones soften. I'll make rice porridge to eat with it tomorrow morning. After dinner, black clouds gathered in the sky. Rain began to pour, turning into a heavy downpour that lasted through the night. Kwong slept soundly, oblivious to the storm. He woke up refreshed the next morning, eating a large bowl of porridge and braised carp. Putting on his raincoat, he navigated the muddy village roads to work. Around noon, Kwong received a phone call from Uncle Luan. He answered, expecting a mundane question, but the old man's first words froze his heart. Kwong, Vu is dead. What? Are you joking? Why would I joke about that? I heard the neighbors talking and went out to ask. Vu got into an accident late last night. The rain made the road slippery. He crashed his motorbike. He wasn't found until dawn. They rushed him to the hospital, but he didn't make it. Good God, is he still at the hospital? His mom and wife are up there now. Buy some candles and incense on your way back, so we can pay our respects. Kwong asked his boss for the afternoon off and rode straight to the town hospital. He found Vu's mother, Mrs. Tu, sitting on a stone bench in the hallway, sobbing gently. Mrs. Tu, Kwong, my poor boy is gone, she wept. What happened, ma'am? I don't know. I was at my relative's house when the hospital called. He drank too much and rode his bike out in the storm last night. He crashed, and there was no one around to help him. Kwong, were you drinking with him last night? No, ma'am. I went to bed early. It's fate, she cried. If he had been drinking with you or someone else, he wouldn't have gone out alone. Where is Lou, ma'am? She's in a hospital bed. She fainted from the shock when she saw his body. Kwong asked for permission to view his friend's body in the morgue. When the police officer pulled back the sheet, Kwong looked at Vu's pale, lifeless face. Overcome with grief, he clasped his hands in prayer, bowed, and stepped away. That afternoon, Kwong and Uncle Luan went to Mrs. Tu's house to help with the funeral arrangements. Because Vu had died outside the home in an accident, local custom dictated that his coffin be placed under a canopy in the front yard rather than inside the house. A Buddhist monk was reciting scriptures by the altar. Since the family was small, Kwong volunteered to stay and help manage the guests and serve tea. By nightfall, Uncle Luan went home first, leaving Kwong to mind the wake. Sitting alone during a quiet moment, Kwong instinctively pulled out his phone. A notification on the screen made his blood run cold. It was a missed call. From Vu. What the? Kwong muttered, his hands shaking. He clicked the call log. It was definitely Vu's number. He stared at the coffin. Just then, Mrs. Tu walked out of the house. Mrs. Tu, Kwong stammered. Did you bury Vu's personal belongings with him? Like his jewelry or his phone? Just his watch and necklace, she replied. His phone was smashed to pieces in the accident. I told the nurses to throw it away. Why do you ask? Oh, nothing. Just wondering. Kwong breathed a sigh of relief. The nurses must have tossed the broken phone somewhere, and a short circuit had triggered a random outgoing call. There was a logical explanation. At 6 p.m., the monk returned to perform the evening rituals. Lu finally appeared from the bedroom, looking pale and exhausted, her eyes swollen from crying. When the ceremony ended, Kwong paid his respects at the altar. As he took a burning stick of incense from Mrs. Tu and bowed, a strange, faint whisper buzzed in his ear, just like the sound he had heard at the hospital morgue. He strained to listen, but the voice was too small to make out words. He planted the incense, said goodbye, and walked out the gate. Outside, a chilling wind hit his face. Shivering, Kwong reached into his pocket for his cigarettes and lighter. He put a cigarette between his lips and flicked the lighter. A spark caught, but an invisible gust of wind instantly snuffed out the flame. He tried several times without success. Is this thing broken? He muttered. He turned back toward the gate to ask for a light. He froze. Standing right under the dim light of the funeral canopy, just steps away from him, was a figure. It was Vu. He looked exactly as he had in the morgue, pale, stiff, and dead. The apparition slowly turned its head, staring directly into Kwong's eyes. Kwong's body locked in sheer terror. He watched helplessly as Vu's pale lips parted, and a thick stream of dark blood spilled from his mouth. The paralysis broke. Kwong spun around and sprinted into the night, running for his life through mud and puddles until he crashed through his own courtyard gate. What's wrong with you? Uncle Luan asked, startled as Kwong slammed the door shut. Why are you running like a ghost is chasing you? Uncle, I just saw one. Kwong panted, collapsing into a chair. I saw Vu. He recounted the horrifying apparition. Uncle Luan listened gravely. It was his spirit, the old man sighed. Poor boy. Many sudden deaths don't realize they are dead yet. But why are you terrified? He was your friend. You didn't harm him. I don't care. I don't want to see ghosts. Then stay inside at night until after his burial. Daytime is safe. Spirits can't manifest in the sun. Despite the reassurance, Kwong slept poorly, plagued by nightmares of Vu. He woke up late the next morning. Seeing his raincoat and helmet wet, he asked, "Did you go out, Uncle?" "I went over to Vu's house," Uncle Juan said. "They changed the burial time. They're burying him this afternoon instead of tomorrow." "Why?" Lu felt the Buddhist monk wasn't thorough, so she hired Master Chin from the town, a well-known sorcerer. He recalculated Vu's birth and death charts and said tomorrow is a terrible omen for burial. If they waited, his soul would be trapped. So they moved it to 4 p.m. today. That afternoon, Kwong and Uncle Juan attended the burial. The funeral canopy was crowded. While waiting outside, a neighbor remarked to Kwong, "Looks like you lost your job helping out today, eh?" "What do you mean?" "Look over there." The neighbor pointed to a strange man in his 30s serving tea. "That's Dad, Lu's cousin from another village. He's been handling everything since dawn." Kwong glanced at the man without much thought. At 4 p.m., the coffin was lowered into the earth. It rained heavily throughout the burial, soaking everyone to the bone. Afterward, Kwong silently prayed for his friend's soul to find peace and to never appear to him again. His prayers seemed answered. For the next 2 weeks, Kwong saw no sign of Vu's ghost. One evening, about half a month later, Kwong finished overtime at 7 p.m. The night was dark and chilly. Wearing his full-face helmet, he rode slowly along the road. As he rounded a curve, he spotted a familiar scooter, a white Honda with a license plate ending in 29. It was the scooter Vu had proudly bought for Lu earlier that year. Lu was sitting on the back, but the man driving wasn't a stranger. Curious and suspicious, Kwong trailed them from a safe distance. The scooter pulled into the courtyard of a cheap motel. As they parked under the light, Kwong recognized the driver. It was Dad, the man introduced at the funeral as Lu's cousin. Her husband hasn't even been dead a month, and she's taking a motel room with another man? Kwong thought in disgust. Even if Dat wasn't actually her cousin, this illicit affair had clearly been going on before Vu's death. Reminded of his own ex-wife's betrayal, Kwong was furious. He rushed home and told Uncle Juan. "What?" Uncle Juan slammed the table. "That shameless woman. Isn't she afraid Vu's spirit will return for vengeance? And poor Mrs. Tu, she was just bragging at the market about what a virtuous daughter-in-law is. She's planning to transfer the house deed to her name. I'm going over there to tell her." "Wait, Uncle." Kwong stopped him. "We have no proof. If we accuse her now, she'll just deny it. Let me follow them again and get video evidence." 2 days later, Kwong waited after work and spotted the lovers on the road again. But instead of heading to a motel, their scooter turned down a desolate dirt path, leading straight to the village cemetery. Kwong turned off his headlights and followed on foot. They walked directly to Vu's new grave. Waiting there for them was a third person, Master Chin, the sorcerer who had altered the burial date. Hiding behind a large tomb, Kwong recorded them with his phone. What followed wasn't a normal memorial offering. Master Chin laid out black candles and yellow talismans, performing an eerie, dark ritual over Vu's grave while Lu and Dat burned strange paper offerings. Kwong brought the video straight to Uncle Juan. The old man watched the footage, his face darkening. "This is bad," Uncle Juan muttered. He pulled out his old phone and dialed a contact. "I'm calling Master Locke, an old friend and the third-generation disciple of the priest who built Lady Third's shrine. Send him this video." 10 minutes later, Master Locke called back. His voice was grim. "That is a soul-suppressing curse, Lutranium. They are driving nails of dark magic into the grave to bind the deceased spirit, preventing it from ever reincarnating or seeking revenge. Can you break it?" Uncle Juan demanded. "I must see it in person. Do not alert them." Unable to contain themselves, Uncle Juan and Kwong went to Mrs. Tu's house immediately. Lu wasn't home. She had told her mother-in-law she was visiting relatives overnight. Uncle Juan showed Mrs. Tu the video and told her everything. The grieving mother collapsed, confessing, "On the first night of the wake, I dreamed of Vu. But after he was buried, he never appeared again. When I asked Lu, she told me Master Chin's prayers had successfully sent him to paradise. I've been deceived." "Stay calm," Uncle Juan warned. "We must wait for Master Locke to break the curse before we confront them." The next evening, Master Locke arrived. At midnight, under a starless sky, the four of them gathered at Vu's grave. Master Locke spent hours performing rituals, burning neutralizing talismans, and chanting to untangle the dark magic. As the final seal was broken around 1 a.m., a sudden, deafening thunderclap cracked across the dry sky. "The curse is broken," Master Locke said heavily. However, because his burial date was altered to a day of bad omen and his grave was cursed, his spirit is severely wounded. He cannot reincarnate for a long time. Worse, he cannot re-enter his family home. His altar there was tainted. If he has nowhere to anchor his soul, he will become a wandering, starving ghost. Good heavens! Mrs. Tu wept. "My poor son." Uncle Luan stepped forward. "Master Locke, what about Lady Third's shrine behind my house? Can we shelter his spirit there? I must cast divination blocks, Xian Kyo, to ask her permission," Master Locke replied. "If Lady Third agrees, we can bring him there." They returned to Uncle Luan's house. But before they could even discuss confronting Lu, Mrs. Tu's phone rang. It was the hospital. Lu and Dad had been killed in a motorcycle accident. Riding back in the middle of the night, their scooter had inexplicably swerved off an empty, straight road and crashed into a drainage culvert, the exact same type of accident that had killed Vu. Both died on impact. Mrs. Tu felt no sorrow, only a grim, silent retribution. At dawn, Master Locke knelt before Lady Third's shrine and tossed the wooden divination blocks. On the third throw, the blocks landed one face up, one face down. Lady Third had granted her permission. In the months that followed, Kwang often saw Vu's spirit lingering quietly in the garden behind Uncle Luan's house. But he was no